So my name is Elisa Pocrell, and I'd like to thank the library for inviting me here today. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. My career includes work in international understanding, communications and marketing, and the environment. And today we're going to find out how we can all help the environment in simple things that we can do that helps all the earth, that helps all living creatures on this earth. And we're going to find out what we can do to exercise the power of one, the power of one person. Now, a citizen is a member of a community or state or nation, a community, state, or nation, and we are all citizens. And citizens are consumers and producers, and consumers are those who purchase goods or products or services in exchange for things they want and need. Producers produce goods and services. So as citizens, we have certain rights and responsibilities. And science is the study of how we help our communities and our world by putting our knowledge of the natural world into action. Right? So my job is to help everyone use science every day so that our world is healthier. So always know how powerful your choices are, no matter what age you are. Now, the first thing that we'll do is I want to ask you a question here. And my question is, are you earth friendly? Okay. And sometimes we have to think about that day by day. Okay. Moment by moment, are we earth friendly? So we're going to discover, okay, what I call generally the 3 R's, and learn how the power of one becomes the power of many. I'm going to start out by telling a story. Okay? And this story is called The Lady's Room. So a lady once lived in a room that was white as snow, and everything in the room was white, and it had white walls and white ceilings and white floors, white carpeting, and there was a little ivory bed, and it had a white coverlet on it. And the lady thought it was the most beautiful room in the whole world, and she lived very happily in that room. But one day, she looked out of her window and she saw the beautiful green grass shining like a carpet on the ground, and all at once she began to sigh. And it wasn't just the grass, it was the bushes and the trees and the leaves, and all those things were so green and beautiful. And she just sighed. And she gave out when she gave out this big sigh, all of a sudden this little fairy jumped on the windowsill, and these were her little feet, okay, as small as my fingers here. And the fairy waved her feet. And she said, "What's the matter with you, lady?" And the lady said in this tiny little voice, "Oh, fairy, okay, I am so tired of this plain white room. I would be so happy if everything was green instead." So the fairy said, "Oh," she said, "right you are, lady." So the fairy sprang onto her bed and sprang forward and snapped her little feet and clicked her little feet, and all of a sudden everything was green. Well, the lady was so happy, and she started to go out in the stores and buy everything that was green, and she didn't care what it was. She didn't care how she would dispose of it, just like she did with everything that was white. When she went to the store, she'd buy everything that was white, and she didn't care what it was again, how to get rid of it, what it did when she used it. She just used it. So she was very happy with that color until all of a sudden she sighed, she looked out the window, and she saw the yellow of the sun. And so she said, "Oh," and she had a big sigh again. She said, "I just wish I'm so happy if everything in my house were yellow like the sun." So the fairy just appeared again, just like this. The fairy waved her little feet, okay? And the fairy said, "Okay, right you are, lady." And all of a sudden, everything was yellow. Her countertops, all of her appliances, her coverlet on her bed, the walls, the ceilings, the floor, everything was yellow. And what did the lady do? She went out into the stores and she purchased all sorts of items. And she purchased things that were the color yellow. And she used those things, and she used them all up, and she didn't care what they were. They just had to be the color yellow. And this went on. And the lady then sighed, she looked at the window, and she saw, oh, those those rose flowers look so wonderful. And then the next time, and the fairy would change it to that color, and the next time there was another color, and another color, and another color, until one day the fairy came back, and the fairy was a little perturbed at this time. And the fairy said, well, what do you want now, lady? And so the lady sighed, okay, and all of a sudden, what happened is that the room collapsed, okay? And when the fairy had jumped onto the bed, sprang forward, and clicked its little feet, okay, the walls fell through, the ceiling fell up, the floor fell down, and the lady was left standing in the black, starry night without any room at all. Now, that's the story of the lady's room. And statistically, there are a lot of people out there who live that lifestyle of the lady. And statistically, we could say that more men out there are ones, when they do studies, that do not take care of basic things like recycling. The more women are more likely to do these things, and more women are in charge of the budgets for household things, and they take care of those household things, and they think about these things. So my challenge is to the men out there, but also to some women who aren't doing these things. Now that lady, when I tell that story, I always ask, does she really take care of the earth? And she wasn't, okay? Because she was just buying anything that we can find on the shelves in the store. She didn't care what was inside of it. What's inside of it is very important, but the packaging is also very important. We have to know and be knowledgeable about what the packaging is. So my question to everybody, other question is, what if everything we threw out stuck to us? What would we find on you? So I'm going to tell you 3 secrets today, and maybe you already know them, but first of all, everyone can make a difference. Everyone. One person can make a difference in caring for the earth. So why do we have to make a difference? Well, here's some challenges that we face in the world. Now, and I know many people have seen you'd have to live in a cave without knowing what the problems that plastic causes in our world. And you see this on Facebook, other social media. You see it on television and documentaries and all sorts of news stories about what plastic and these packaging materials are doing when they get in the wrong place. Know that the United States spends more on trash bags than 90 other countries spend on everything. Put another way, we spend more on trash bags than all things consumed by nearly half of the world's nations. In the United States, we generate enough trash each year to fill a line of garbage trucks halfway to the moon. And in your lifetime, you will each fill up a gymnasium full of trash. And think how big, okay, a gym is in any of our schools. It's huge. Think of that filled to the brim with what we don't want, okay? The trash, the refuse from society. So here's another figure for people. Each American uses 600 pounds of paper each year, and that's the weight of a tiger. And I would actually think that we use more than that, and because of everything that we print out when we have all of our computer technology. But regardless, anywhere from 60 to 84 out of 100 items in your trash should not be there. So when we compare the weight of what we throw out every day, which is about 4.5 pounds per person per day, to the weight of a human, we throw away 1 kindergartner every week. We're talking just about the weight now, okay, not the actual person, okay, and 1 teenager every month. So that's the actual trash weight, not the actual person. Now, trash in Monroe County goes to a landfill in Terre Haute, Sycamore Ridge landfill. And of course, landfill is where a landfill is where trash is buried. And it's not a solution to our trash problem. Landfills are actually just bigger today. They're bigger today. There are pollution issues with landfills, even though they are regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. Some communities, like in Indianapolis, incinerate. Okay? They burn up their trash. But incineration doesn't solve the problem. It causes greenhouse gases and, of course, the ashes that have to go somewhere. What goes up must come down. It pollutes our soil and our water and our air. Plus, it doesn't make sense to burn up natural resources which we could recycle. That's why many businesses and households today are looking at business waste. Now, where does more of the waste come from? It comes from businesses, which is why we need to convince more businesses, and more businesses are being green, okay, and looking into what they can use, what they can recycle, but a lot of other green measures too in their daily operations. And they look at what their waste in the industry is and how they can reuse it in some way or sell it or recycle it. So when people look for, I'm going to go through some things that we can recycle here, but first I want to point out that whatever we buy, whatever type of store or product it is, we want to make sure that it has the right function, okay, the right use. Okay. For instance, if it's a beverage, we want it to have the right taste, right? The right taste. And the second thing is that we want to make sure that whatever we buy is durable, that it's not going to break the next day. And if you've ever had the experience of buying something, whether online or in a store, and it doesn't work, okay, you want to make sure that you can repair it, okay, which means you want to be able to reuse it in the first place. And then the other thing is that we want to make sure, of course, it is the right price. We all have a budget, okay, and we need to make sure that we can afford it. So we've got the right price, we have the right function, we want it to be durable. The other thing is that we often forget about is that whatever we buy has to be earth friendly. Meaning it's not going to, unlike the story about the ladies' room, it's not going to hurt anyone, okay, or anything. Now, the other thing that people need to know is that there are a whole number of R's that we need to keep in mind. Okay? And the first one is, of course, refusing. We want to refuse something in a store if it's not something that is good for the environment. And this tells companies that we're supporting companies that do the right thing for the earth, okay? That create things that are what I call green social entrepreneurship. These are businesses that think about these things, that think about how their product, good or service helps the world, okay, in their community. So we want to refuse things, first of all. And that's a way of reducing. Okay? It's a way of reducing waste. So we've got reduce first in here. Okay? So refuse and then reduce. When we can reduce waste in many, many different ways. Okay? And one example of refusing would be when you go to the store and the cashier asks, well, they don't ask paper or plastic anymore, do they? But they put it in a plastic bag. Okay? So they will put your item in a plastic bag. First of all, if you only have one item, refuse the plastic bag. Second of all, you want to refuse the plastic bag because more and more places like the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District do not accept plastic bags for recycling. Because there's so much of this that it gets into our environment as litter. It doesn't biodegrade. It causes so many problems, of which many people are aware. So refuse those plastic bags. Now, the other thing to do is use reusable bags. And I have a reusable bag here, And I have a number of reusable bags, all different kinds, okay, that I use for classrooms, for presentations that I go to. So people can use a variety of different reusable bags, which are on the market and sold all different places, from grocery stores to other retail shops. So you want to reuse those bags every time. Keep the reusable bags in your trunk of your car, and then bring that in. So reuse is, reducing waste can occur in a lot of ways, and we want to reduce waste and not make a lot of plastic waste that we have in our society by not using certain things. The other thing is that you want to reuse, like I mentioned, with all the different forms of reusable bags that we have, and we can certainly reuse many things, and that's another word that goes with this is repurpose. When we repurpose items, it's another way of reusing. Okay? So we reuse a lot of different materials before it even gets recycled. People can find different ways. People reuse paper bags, and paper bags can be recycled. So we can use those as well, because there are some uses that we can use those for, like cat litter and things like that, that we cannot, that are helpful. And then recycle. So when we recycle, we're turning old things into new things. The other thing that's important for people to know is that about these 3 arrows, what they stand for. Now, this is just one of the smaller bins that the city of Bloomington has. Now they have a variety of options for recyclers. But I just want you to look at those 3 arrows for a second. Okay? And the 3 arrows, that's the recycling symbol, the recycling logo. Recycling symbol, I'm sorry. And so the first arrow stands for the fact that we collect different types of recyclables in the first place. And at the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District, we have 5 drop-off recycling centers where the public can drop off their recyclables. In the community, for instance, the city of Bloomington has pickup services where they will pick up your recyclables at your home, and you get a variety of different size bins. But at the district, we have 5 drop-off recycling centers, and people bring those things to us. So that's the first arrow. Second arrow refers to the fact that it's important that the recyclables go to the manufacturer. So they remanufacture these items. So when we, for instance, take cardboards and put it in a recycling bin, it is then sent out and is sent to a specific business. Okay, and with the district, they're in Indiana. These businesses are mostly generally in Indiana, and then it's recycled. It's made into new things. Now, so this third arrow stands for the fact that we as consumers are responsible to support businesses that use responsible packaging, that we need to buy things that have recycled content in it. So if you look at certain of these items, if you look at this container over here, it may or may not have the recycling symbol on it. It may be incorrectly on here, but it does tell you what percentage of recycled content this item has in it. So that's an important thing to look for. And again, support, and it won't be in one particular side on the container. You'll have to look for it, but generally it will be on here. It'll give you a percentage. That's the recycled content. So it's important to support businesses that think about their packaging, and studies indicate that the packaging, that really at the design stage, it really impacts impacts our earth. Okay, has a tremendous impact on our earth. So support companies that do that. So that's what these arrows actually stand for. And the first one, again, is that we collect different sorts of recyclables. The second one is that the businesses are sent to businesses that remanufacture those recyclables. And the third one, it means that we as consumers are responsible to buy items that are responsibly packaged and that can be recycled. So caring for the earth, we can do a lot of things, and we call that earth stewardship. Okay? And there are a lot of ways that we can care for the earth. But recycling is such a simple thing that people could do. And recycling, you can bring your things in a brown paper sack, you can bring your things in your reusable bag, you can use hampers, people use all sorts of things when they drop off recyclables. So whatever's effective for you. Sometimes people will pre-sort it at their house, so they'll have plastics in one container and they will have cardboard in another, paper in another, whatever works for your household. If you have a place in the kitchen, you can do that, or in the garage, whatever works for you. And then when you bring it to our recycling centers, you can just drop it off. If you have access to free community recycling where they pick up, it's important that you know the rules and regulations of what those agencies have. But we generally, the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District accepts a lot more items than other recycling agencies. And so let's go through some of the things that we can recycle. And I'm going to start off with cardboard. Cardboard comes in a lot of different packaging, and so you want to drop that off and put it in as a cardboard bin. And if you ever have a question, please ask one of the attendants at the district and they can help you. So cardboard. Now, if you have big cardboard boxes, we have a free community service where you can just bring those. You don't have to break down the box. You can put it in one section where the public can pick it up and reuse it for something, or you can put it in the cardboard bin. So that's one thing. And then we have, for instance, there's plastics. There are a whole variety of plastics. And in order to tell what plastics can be recycled, let me put some plastics over here, you need to look for something in particular. So here's some sample plastics that I'm going to put here. And whatever type it is, you need to look for these numbers. So over here, you have to look for those 3 arrows on the packaging material that form a triangle. And inside that arrow, there's going to be one of these numbers on it. And it's going to be either a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. It has to have one of those numbers on it. Now, these numbers refer to the density of the plastics, the chemical composition. The majority of the plastics, 95% or more, are really the 1s and 2s. Okay? And you want to always rinse your plastic containers too. So you have to look for the arrows first and one of those numbers. So when you do that, then you're going to find this on different parts of the items. For instance, when I look up this, it's going to be on the bottom, okay, and I see the arrows on here, and this says a number 1. So yes, we can put this in the recycling bin. Now, the tops, always look for the tops and the bottoms, because sometimes the number is just on one and not the other. If you don't find one of those recycling symbol and one of those numbers on it, that means that item goes in the trash. Again, it's not going to be on the label, though. It's going to be on the actual material. So on this one is right up here. That's where you're going to see it. Now, plastic water bottles cause a lot of problems all over the world. Because again, a majority don't get recycled. They end up as litter. And just like plastic bags, plastic does not break down all the way. It's not totally biodegradable. And then those little pieces that end up in our oceans or other bodies of water, they're called nurdles. And so it's really important that you recycle, okay, all your plastics. Now, when those nurdles end up in the bodies of water, they form dead zones in the ocean. It's like a plastic soup almost. And then think of this, when the fish and the turtles and the birds eat that, okay, it gets into the food chain. And then we go fishing, we eat the fish, okay, and it gets into the human chain. So it's very important that you recycle all sorts of things and put plastics in the right place. And you use metal bottles is the best. Metal reusable water bottles is the best thing that you can use. Now, again, on the bottom, you want to look at the bottom for it, and it's going to tell you that this can be recycled. Now, when you look at this is people think of this as a styrofoam, right? But styrofoam is a type of plastic. So for egg cartons, it's best to get egg cartons that are cardboard. Okay, cardboard can be recycled. as opposed to the styrofoam, because styrofoam breaks down in little pieces, again, causes a lot of pollution issues. But I'm going to show you something here, that this can also be recycled, these types of containers. If the styrofoam container has those 3 arrows on it and a 1 through 7 number on it, you can put it in your recycle bin. And some people bring these to our drop off our reuse area because farmers reuse these, and people who have chickens, you reuse those. The other thing you want to think about when you're buying these, of course, what is the healthiest for you? Now, when we recycle, we reduce pollution in our environment. So reduce the amount of pollution, reduce the energy use, reduce the use of natural resources. There's so many ripple effects. Home is where the habitat is, and we want to make sure that we protect our habitat. It's never wise to soil our nest. So if we're reducing the use of natural resources, we have to cut down fewer trees, okay, that go into the manufacturing of these resources. The other thing we want to keep in mind is, for instance, like this container says, from hens raised in a humane environment with vegetarian feed. Eggs do not contain hormones. We don't want pesticides and hormones in our food. So you want to look for these sorts of things. You want to look for the fact that the animal has been raised humanely. So this is another reason why I'm saying buy them buy your eggs in cardboard and look for those stipulations. Other plastics, things as small as this yogurt cup, can be recycled, but you want to make sure that you do rinse this out first. If we get contaminated items in our bins, if we get too much of it, then the manufacturer can actually refuse the load, and then it would go to the landfill. Now, that's never happened, okay, at the district, but we don't want it to happen. So it's important people practice basic things like rinsing this out, okay, and then putting in your recycle bin. So those are just some of the plastics. Other things that are common recyclables would be glass. Okay? This is an example of a glass bottle. There are all different types of glass bottles. Glass comes in a variety of different colors. It comes in, you may have seen it in green, okay, in blue, and in brown. And brown glass is not just for beer bottles, but also sauces. Some sauces come in brown bottles. And this is clear, clear. So when you come to our sites, just look at, the sites are a little different, but generally you need to put them in the bin with that proper color. Blue and green go together, but it depends on the site. Okay? And when it gets to the manufacturer, they do melt down the glass by color, so they stick to the color. But we're talking about glass bottles here. Only glass bottles can be recycled. It has to have a neck, okay? So it has to have a neck. We can't recycle just glass, like a glass container or something. It has to be a glass bottle. So glass is another recyclable. And then you have steel cans. So you have lots of metals. Metals are very valuable, okay? Metals, this is steel. These are steel cans. Again, you want to rinse them out. And it used to be that you'd have to take off the labels. You don't have to do that. You just rinse out the can. And steel is something that if you had a magnet and you put the magnet to the steel part, the magnet would actually stick. Aluminum is something like, for instance, this is a frozen juice can, okay? And you can take off this part. This is aluminum. Aluminum also comes in like cat food containers, tuna fish containers. It's a lightweight metal. So that's something that can also be put in your recycling bin. Now, so we've covered the cardboard, the plastic, the glass, the paper. Paper comes in so many different types when you think about it. So we've got, the paper that my notes are on. We've got colored paper, construction paper, magazines. And when you come to the centers, you'll find a section where it'll ask you for newspapers. Put newspapers here with the brown paper bags. Put the white paper. White paper is a more valuable recyclable commodity than mixed paper. So the white paper goes in one bin. The magazines go in another. The mixed paper would be the construction paper. Different types of paper go in that. So paper is another big item. And paper is something, paper and phone books are two of the most common things found in landfills. And they should not be there because it's the easiest thing to recycle. When you think about it, it's the easiest thing to recycle. So those are some things that we can do. Now, Other items I'm going to show you, of course, here's another plastic over here, just your common milk jug. So the symbol's going to be here. Here's the aluminum I was looking for, okay? So this had tuna in it, okay? So you can recycle that. This had a pie in it. And think of all the sodas that people drink. Okay, this is also the lightweight aluminum. Now, there's studies that indicate if we recycled all the aluminum cans in the United States, we'd save billions of barrels of oil. And I want you to think about this. If people didn't drink soda pop, okay, we would save billions of dollars in health care costs. So next time you reach for this, think about that. But regardless, you want to make sure you put these things in the recycling bin. Now, some things that I'm going to show you are called disposables. Okay? And I have a variety here. So for instance, if you go to a picnic, okay, you want to make sure that you pack it in, pack it out. Okay, you're not going to leave the trash there. And the best thing for you to use would be something that is not a disposable, that is reusable. It's going to be this plate here. Okay, so a plate that you can take, okay, and then you can take home and wash it and reuse it. Disposables are items such as these things. This is a paper plate. Paper plates cannot be recycled. Okay? And this is a plastic plate. Now, there are some plastics out there that will have this one doesn't, but there's some plastic out there that have the triangle on it and one of those numbers in it, the 1 through 7 on here. And if it's a 1 through 7, you can recycle it, but have you seen anybody recycle this? Where do they go? They go in the trash can. They go to the landfill. So it's important that you do not use recyclables. I'm including plastic silverware or plastic cups. Okay? Those are, again, are disposables. It's meant for a one-time use, only. So we want to make sure that people limit their use of disposables or not use them, refuse them, okay? Or if you have to use it for something, limit your use of that. Another example of a disposable would be paper towels. Okay? Now, paper towels, again, okay, cannot be recycled. They go to the landfill. And garbage cans should just be labeled landfill. Okay? So instead of using this, of a paper towel, you can use a cloth, which you can reuse. Okay? Any type of cloth, you wash it and reuse it, or you can use a sponge. So when you reuse the sponge, of course, you run under the water, you rinse it, okay, you clean it, and you reuse it. Simple things that everybody can do. So those are some items there. Other items that you want to be careful of, some other disposables, make sure that what you buy, again, can be used over and over again. That reuse aspect is so important. So you don't want to jump from reducing waste to recycling. You want to make sure that you can reuse it too, or repair it, okay, if it breaks. Make sure that it is durable. Okay. So all of this makes a difference. Another thing that I wanted to mention would be electronics. Okay. We have all sorts of electronics. Whether in some electronics it's going to have a battery in it. If it has a battery, make sure you drop that off at our hazardous materials facilities because the battery itself may have chemicals in it. Some batteries have mercury and cadmium in them and lead. And so you want to make sure, which are hazardous to us, heavy metals are hazardous to us. And you don't want to get that into our ecosystems. You want to bring in any electronics. Now, electronics are generally free except for items with a screen. If the item has a screen, like a television or a laptop, if it's 7 inches or larger, the screen, you need to bring it in. There's a $20 recycling fee per item for that electronic. So, but you want to drop that off at our South Walnut Recycling Center at the district located in Bloomington, 3400 South Walnut Street. So make sure, the other thing that they do when we recycle electronics is that the metals are stripped down, The wiring is melted, it's recycled. And so there's a lot of valuable metals in simple things that are considered electronics. So that's something you never want to throw in your trash because it gets into the landfill and causes pollution issues. Other things, some updates on recycling. I've already mentioned that we do not accept plastic bags anymore. That's one. I also want to mention that we do not accept the prescription medicines at the South Walnut Recycling Center anymore, but we do still accept the over-the-counter medicines. That's something that we take in. So everything that we have, buy, and eat, okay, comes from the earth. Comes from the earth. These are gifts from the earth. And natural resources are trees and air and soil and water and wildlife. And those are things that make our world function. Right? And we can make, the district's challenge to you is to make a difference every day by reducing waste, but first of all, refusing, okay? Which is a way of reducing, reusing, repurposing, and recycling, and teach others. There's a saying that says that first you make your habits, then they make you, then they make the world. So always remember that the secret, the first secret that is each person can make a difference. And when you do make a difference, you are making a difference for the whole world, okay? Not just your community. There's so many impacts. Recycling impacts everything from jobs to health. Right? It's the common denominator. And the power of one becomes the power of many. So the power of one person can become the power of many people. And it can help not only your family, but your community, your neighborhood, state, and the entire earth. So is taking care of the earth just my responsibility, just the district's? No, okay? It is everyone's responsibility. Businesses and households and people of all ages. So the real secret of power is the consciousness of power, the consciousness of power. So I would like to end with just a statement about the legendary singer Aretha Franklin. Okay? And Aretha Franklin influenced a lot of our civil rights. Well, environmental justice is also part of civil rights. And Aretha Franklin had a wonderful song called Respect, okay? And so it's important that people give a little respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, to the earth, okay? And when they do that, they end up respecting themselves and others and all life on this earth. So I thank the library again for being here, and if you have any questions, please call the district at our 812-349-2020, or go to our website at gogreendistrict.com. And we're also on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and I'd be happy to come to any of the events or programs that you have and talk to businesses about green social entrepreneurship. Thank you.